Good afternoon. I would like to talk to you about the impact of breast tissue density and the diagnosis of breast cancer. These are my disclosures. The objectives are to discuss the relationship between breast density and underdiagnosis of breast cancer, to review the association of breast density and the risk of developing breast cancer, and to determine the role of supplemental imaging in screening of dense breasts. This is an example of a woman I saw last year, a 60-year-old woman who had been undergoing regular screening every 2 years. 2 months after her last normal screening mammogram, she presented with a new right breast mass. The ultrasound showed a 3-centimeter mass at 12 o'clock, and adjacent 1.75 centimeters lateral was a second 3-centimeter mass at the 11 o'clock location, and she also had axillary lymphadenopathy. Her MRI demonstrated very extensive tumor within her right breast, as well as the axillary lymph node. And this was proven to be multicentric invasive ductal carcinoma, which required a mastectomy. When we looked at her mammograms in a multidisciplinary setting with 6 breast radiologists looking at the mammograms, even in retrospect, there was no way to identify any change in the mammograms or to identify the cancer, even retrospectively. So how often does a mammogram miss a breast cancer? Well, on average, it's about 15%. The average sensitivity of mammography is 85%, and about 15% of breast cancers are detected by clinical symptoms, a palpable lump, nipple discharge, and some other symptoms. We grade breast density using the American College of Radiology BI-RADS system, which is the 4-point scale with BI-RADS A, B, C, and D. As shown here with the images, going from fatty replaced to scattered fibroglandular densities, heterogeneously dense to extremely dense, where most of the breast tissue is composed of glandular density, glandular tissue. How many cancers are detected in extremely dense breast tissue? Is it 25%, 50%, 75%, or 85%? Well, the answer is only 50%, and the sensitivity is markedly reduced in dense breast tissue. We know that this masking effect of breast density is due to the fact that breast density is white on a mammogram and breast cancers appear as white on a mammogram. Only about 45% of cancers are associated with microcalcifications that we can really readily identify in the mammogram. So many cancers are masked by dense breast tissue. Here is an obvious cancer in a fatty breast, very easy to see and diagnose at early stage. Here are 4 different examples of patients with right breast cancers, all in the lateral breast on CZ views. The one on the left showing a fatty background of density, very easily to identify the cancer, whereas as the density increases from scattered to heterogeneously dense, these cancers become more difficult to identify, and in the extremely dense breast tissue is completely obscured. How often do we have dense breast tissue? Well, about 50% are considered dense, ACR C and D. The majority of patients have B and C as the bulk of the density, with about 40% in each category. And if you look at age and breast density, in women in their 30s, about 75% will have increased density, whereas only 25% of women in their 70s have increased density. And the breakdown by decade is it gradually decreases as women get older. And overall, about 40% of women have dense breast tissue. So we know that mammographic density can diminish over time, but it's important that the women in who the density does not decrease over time, these are more likely to be diagnosed with breast cancer. How do we measure breast density? Well, I've shown you the American College of Radiology BI-RADS, and we now, with the 5th edition, that it's not based on density. But in fact, going to the 5th edition has led to more category B and C and fewer A and D categories. We know that there's a high rate of intra and inter-reader variability with the 4th edition, which we see also with the 5th edition. And this is why we have relied more increasingly on volumetric and computed assessment. The techniques have evolved, including Wolf and Tabar, as well as BI-RADS, then manual planimetry and automated volumetric. But right now, we are effectively relying on the BI-RADS for the visual and automated volumetric assessment. We know that tomosynthesis has changed the way we assess density, and several studies demonstrate that we categorize more breasts as non-dense when we use tomosynthesis. And this is in the order of about 2 to 5% are less dense. So measuring breast density is actually much more accurate if we use the fully automated density assessment. And the fully automated volumetric assessment, where the whole volume of tissue is assessed, is best used with Volpara and Quantra assessments. Densitas is another assessment. And these methods have shown good correlation with BI-RADS and tomosynthesis. There is recent evidence to suggest that artificial intelligence can help measure breast tissue density with good correlation in the study by Connie Lehman in 2019 with the visual assessment of BI-RADS with a deep learning tool. So breast density can be evaluated with mammography, MRI, and ultrasound, but not by physical examination. The best method of determining breast tissue density is with a mammogram, and it should be reported on every screening and diagnostic mammogram. Now, the reason why we really need to pay attention to breast density is that it's much more likely for the screen to fail, as in that case that I demonstrated to start the talk. We know that interval cancers are between 5 and 18 times more common in women who have dense breast tissue. Interval cancers are defined as the cancer that develops in between the interval between 2 screening rounds if a patient is in a regular screening program. By definition, if it's greater than 1 per 1,000, this is an ineffective screen. So if we have interval cancers that are higher than that, this tells us that the screening program is not as effective for women with dense breast tissue. The cancers at diagnosis are larger and more often node positive when they're detected in the interval, and are more likely to have higher nuclear grades and more aggressive subtypes, often with a poor prognosis as compared to those who are screen detected. Now, here's a woman with extremely dense breast tissue, screened every year. This is normal, even in retrospect. 8 months later, she presents with a palpable mass. The mammogram that's done at this point is still negative, even with tomosynthesis. And an ultrasound diagnoses a 3.2 centimeter cancer that is easily detected with ultrasound, but completely missed in the dense breast tissue. So this is an interval cancer and is more likely to have a poor prognosis. There have been several studies looking at the rate of interval cancers and breast density, and this is using the old percentage BI-RADS study by Norman Boyd, published in the New England Journal, showing that the odds ratio, the likelihood of having an interval cancer, goes from 1 if in the fatty breast to almost 18 in the most dense breast tissue. And it's been reproduced with other studies using the more the 5th edition BI-RADS, showing that interval cancers is very high with extremely dense as compared to fatty breast tissue. We know that the stage at diagnosis with women who are screened annually also depends on their breast tissue density. So women who have fatty breast tissue are more likely to have a stage 1 than stage 3 or 4. Women with extremely dense tissue are less likely to have early stage breast cancer and more likely to have stage 2B, 3, or 4. So not only do they have a higher risk of being missed with the screening and a higher risk of interval cancer, but they also have a higher stage at diagnosis, which leads to poorer prognosis. And Dr. Tabar, his group published their results of the Kopperberg screening program of almost 16,000 women, showing that the association of dense breast tissue had a much lower survival than women who were non-dense, with a relative risk of mortality of 1.91 higher for women with dense breast tissue. So this has a direct impact on their mortality. So not only does density decrease the sensitivity, but it also increases the risk of breast cancer. So how much does it increase the risk? Is it equivalent to having a first-degree relative with breast cancer, a second-degree relative of breast cancer, or does it not increase the risk? Well, in fact, it is equivalent to having a first-degree relative with breast cancer. This is a risk factor that women should be made aware of, as well as impact their screening regimen. We know from many studies that cancer is 4 to 6 times more likely in women with the highest level of density than as compared to fatty breasts, and it's 2 times greater than average for all density. And if women who have the highest breast density have a higher risk than actually having a mother or sister with breast cancer. So this shows that the average increase is twice for extremely dense versus the average density. And this is another study published 3 years ago showing that if breast tissue density was decreased, theoretically, it would result in a 40% lower risk of breast cancer in premenopausal women and 26% lower risk in postmenopausal women. So although it increases the risk, it does not actually bring a woman into high risk category. Her risk is therefore of moderate risk, or 15 to 20% lifetime risk, as compared to high risk, which is greater than 20%. It's really important to incorporate density into risk assessment because it does improve the accuracy of risk models. So if you use the Tyrer-Cuzick model, these studies by Brentnall et al. Showed that there was a significant improvement in the accuracy of the risk model using density. And it increases the accuracy by up to 1.6 times with a volumetric assessment. And it does lead to more patients being identified as high risk. It's important to remember, though, that it does not apply to women in their 30s, where these models have not been validated for the risk with density. Now, we know now density is important. Do we bury our heads in the sand, or do we try and do something about it? And this has been the work that has been occurring over the past few years. It's very important that breast density information be provided to patients. They need to know that they have a risk factor for breast cancer. They're more likely to participate in regular screening, to be self-aware, and less likely to be falsely reassured from a normal mammogram or to seek medical attention for a new breast lump or suspicious nipple discharge. They also will make better health decisions, or they feel that they would have more control over those modifiable risk factors and are less likely to be angry or surprised with a cancer diagnosis. This net density notification has really impacted the legislation in many countries to allow supplemental screening, and it has been led by patient advocacy. Nancy Capello was a education specialist in Connecticut who only weeks after a normal mammogram was identified with stage 3B breast cancer. And when she discovered that she had dense breast tissue, really took on this as a vital, important information for patients, and led to the first Connecticut bill on density in 2005, which was signed by the governor. And now we have multiple states in the United States that have breast tissue density legislation. There are 38 states in all with this legislation and notification. This is another strong advocate, Joanne Pushkin, who has the densebreastinfo.org website. And it's led to also information in the European countries on the same website. In Canada, we have another strong patient advocate, Jenny Dale, who has started the Dense Breast Canada website, and notification is occurring in all of the provinces of Canada. So once we have the notification, what about supplemental screening? So if we look to some of the data from the high-risk screening group, we have Dr. Kuhl's study of the AVA trial looking, these were women at high risk for breast cancer. We can see that the cancer yield really depends on the imaging methods. So if we only have mammography, the cancer yield is 5 per thousand. Ultrasound, 6 per thousand. The combination is 7.7 per thousand cancers. MRI is a huge jump with almost 15 per thousand cancers diagnosed. And adding ultrasound makes no difference, while adding mammography increases the cancer yield by 1 per thousand. So 16 per thousand is the best cancer yield in high-risk women. And adding ultrasound makes no difference. So this is the standard that we use for high-risk screening. What about for women of average risk? Well, we know that mammography is the only established diagnostic tool to show mortality reduction for women in average risk. What are some of the strategies? Well, annual screening reduces the interval cancer rate in women with dense breast tissue, but it increases the false positives. Tomosynthesis also increases the cancer detection rate and reduces the false positive recalls, but it's only best for ACRC in the dense breast, not for D. Breast ultrasound has been studied extensively, and it increases the cancer detection by 2 to 4 per thousand with more early stage cancers. Breast MRI has been studied and shows that it increases the cancer detection rate by 14 to 20 per thousand. And contrast-enhanced mammography also is showing promise in increasing the cancer detection rate by 13 per thousand, but it's limited right now by contrast reactions that occur in about 1% and the difficulty in biopsy availability. Lastly, we have the nuclear medicine studies, which also are showing promise, but they do take 40 minutes to do and have high radiation still in comparison to the other strategies. Now, this is a study that was published in 2019 by Dr. Scon's group, looking at the impact of density that was assessed by volumetric quanta assessment, and compared the rate of false positives and true positives with tomosynthesis in all 4 density groups. Tomosynthesis showed a greater number of spiculated masses and architectural distortion in ACR B and C categories. And you can see here that it was significant in the B and C categories, but there was no significant difference in the ACR D categories. And here is an example of an ACRC from our group showing that we have a normal 2D mammogram on the left, and on the right, we have with tomosynthesis 3 spiculated areas with architectural distortion that are only seen with tomosynthesis and allow the diagnosis of cancer. And when we look at Dr. Friedewald's graph showing the impact of density from their study, you can see that the women with extremely dense tissue do not increase the cancer detection rate, but just reduce the false positives, whereas heterogeneously dense really does improve. We still have 40% of cancers that are undiagnosed in women with dense breast tissue with tomosynthesis. Now, looking at women with tomosynthesis or ultrasound, the ASTOUND 1 trial by the Italian group led by Dr. Tagliafico showed that there were in women with normal 2D who underwent tomo and handheld ultrasound, there were 24 additional cancers identified, of which 13 were detected with tomo and 23 were detected only with ultrasound. So the false positive rates were not different, and nor were the biopsy, but you can see that a significant number were diagnosed with ultrasound only, with a 7 per thousand incremental cancer detection rate. So if we look at ultrasound, there are many studies that have been done to look at the role of screening breast ultrasound. And the Japanese JSTART trial for women in their 40s is so far the only randomized control trial looking at the outcomes. Women were randomized to mammography alone or with the addition of handheld ultrasound. And what they found was that the cancer detection rate increased in the mammography plus ultrasound group by 2 per thousand to a total of 5 per thousand, and that there were significantly more stage 0 or 1 cancers in the ultrasound group, with a very improved interval cancer rate in the ultrasound group. So the JSTART showed that this is an important way of reducing interval cancers. The problem is that it's operator dependent, it lacks reproducibility, requires time, specially trained staff, some of which can be helped with automated breast ultrasound, but this also requires them to return. And the problem with ultrasound overall is that the prevalence of abnormalities is high, and 3% of all screened women are recommended for biopsy, of which only somewhere between 2 and 30% are positive for cancer. Although this improves with subsequent rounds, the positive predictive value going from 6.7% to 17%, it still has a lower positive predictive value than MRI and mammography. And those are the biggest limitations of screening ultrasound. Interestingly, it does show that there's a higher proportion of invasive lobular carcinomas, and this is something to evaluate with future studies. So, and this is this Akron 666 trial showing, again, that the very similar results with screening ultrasound. What's really important about the Akron 666 trial is that after negative mammography and ultrasound, there was still a 14.7 per thousand cancer detection rate with MRI, even though a significant number declined MRI. So let's look at MRI. So this is a high-risk patient undergoing a screening mammogram every year, ACRC density, and on MRI, she has a very clear 1.5 centimeter left breast cancer. So we know that MRI detects neoangiogenesis, which is very different from the differences in density. And so density really does not play a role. Dr. Kuhl did the first study to look at a large scale screening of women with average risk for breast cancer and looked at women who had on average dense breast in 60%, 38% were ACRC and 22% were ACRD. And what she found after normal mammogram is that breast MRI detected an additional 60 cancers, of which 2/3 were invasive and 1/3 was DCIS, for a supplemental cancer detection rate of 15.5 per thousand. And even with subsequent rounds, the cancer detection rate in addition was 6.9 per thousand. And here are some examples from her study. Normal mammograms in a 55-year-old, normal breast ultrasound, and the MRI demonstrates a T1B N0 M0 invasive high-grade triple negative breast cancer. So the cancers in her study were small, node negative in the vast majority, 93%, and interestingly, 46% of the cancers were high grade, with which is a common trait of interval cancers. There were no interval cancers detected, and her specificity and positive predictive value were very high. She suggested that you may only need to screen dense breast tissue every 3 years to maintain a low interval cancer rate. Now, the New England Journal study of dense breast is a landmark study that was published in 2019 of 40,000 women with extremely dense breast tissue. And they were randomized to either mammography or mammography plus MRI. And they did an assessment of interval cancers in the 2-year screening period. What they found is that the interval cancer rate was twice as high in women who had only the mammography screening at 5 per 1,000 and 2.5 per 1,000 in the MRI invitation group. But when they drilled down into who had been invited in the MRI group, only 4 who had been invited had underwent the MRI with cancers. So their interval cancer rate was 0.8 per 1,000. The other 16 had not accepted the invitation, and so their interval cancer rate was 4.9 per 1,000, which was identical to the mammography-only group. When we looked at the cancers that were diagnosed in the MRI group, there were almost 20% DCIS as compared to 6% DCIS in the interval cancer mammography group, and there were only 11% node positive cases in the MRI group as compared to 45% in the interval cancer group. So we had early stage with the MRI group and late stage with the interval cancers. So the cancer detection rate in this study was very high, 16.5 per 1,000. And the recall rate for biopsy was 17% with a positive predictive value of 26%, which is within the acceptable range for MRI benchmarks. And the false positive rate was 8%. We have the ECOG-ACRIN study, which was published late last year, which showed another impact of MRI, this time with abbreviated MRI, where only one post-contrast study was used. And this was a randomized trial with tomosynthesis, and each modality was interpreted independently. The MRI detected many, many more invasive cancers than tomosynthesis, with a cancer detection rate of MRI of almost 12 per 1,000 as compared to tomosynthesis, which was almost 5 per 1,000. And there were no invasive cancers identified by tomosynthesis alone or as an interval cancer during follow-up. These are the sensitivities, specificities, abnormal interpretation rates, and positive predictive values. And you can see that the sensitivity was much higher with MRI, but the specificity was lower. Now, what about the harms of gadolinium? We know that there is concern about the accumulation of gadolinium, and a recent study looking at high-risk breast cancer patients who had more than 6 doses of gadolinium with the macrocyclic agents compared to non-exposed patients found that there was no accumulation in the brain using the macrocyclic agents. So it's important that we use the most safe dose of gadolinium, and using the macrocyclic agents is very important that we adhere to this. Now, last is contrast enhanced mammography. This is showing a lot of promise. And Janice Sung from the Memorial Sloan Kettering Group published this study of screening contrast enhanced mammography patients with dense breast tissue and found a cancer detection rate that was 14 per 1,000 with high specificity and positive predictive value. The rate of contrast reactions was 1.7%. But they were almost all mild, one moderate that required antihistamine treatment. So to summarize, supplemental screening resources are limited. We know this. We know that MRI is limited and ultrasound is much more available, but false positives are a downside for all of these studies, but they increase along with the increased cancer detection rates. We use supplemental screening for women at intermediate risk of breast cancer. And here we are seeing the impact and the benefit. So to take home, breast density is an important factor, and you have to be aware of it for screening and diagnosis. We know that dense breasts have a lower sensitivity of detection with breast cancer for breast cancer on mammography and a higher interval cancer rate. And women with dense breasts have a higher risk of developing breast cancer. We know that patient advocacy has really helped to raise awareness and that notification of breast density is essential. We should be doing supplemental screening for dense breast tissue, and whenever possible, breast MRI at the moment is the best supplemental screening test. I'll leave you with this flow chart from Dense Breast Info. It's available online that takes you through the algorithm and recommends MRI as the best modality if possible. And if not available, then to use supplemental screening with ultrasound. So thank you very much for your attention. And I look forward to seeing you in person in the future.